Is he Mr. Security, a modern-day Churchill, the indispensable guardian of the Jewish state? Or is he King Bibi, a polarizing divider who fractured his own nation and eroded its democratic soul? A master statesman who stared down Iran and forged historic peace? Or a political survivor who gambled with his nation's security for his own career? The story of Benjamin Netanyahu begins not with him, but in the dark, book-lined study of his father, Ben-Sion. Ben-Sion wasn't just a historian. He was an ideologue, once a secretary to Zeev Jabotinsky, the founder of revisionist Zionism. His life's work created the foundational software that would guide his son's entire career.
Ben-Sion's life's work on the Spanish Inquisition led him to a bleak conclusion. History is a cycle of Jewish persecution. He believed assimilation was a fantasy, and that the world would always turn on the Jews. The Holocaust to him was not an aberration, but a continuation of that history.
This worldview extended directly to the modern Middle East. Ben-Sion's view was uncompromising. In a 2009 interview, he stated, "This grim software was installed on unique hardware. In 1963, the family moved to a suburb of Philadelphia. Young Bibi, as he was called, wanted to fit in. He adopted the more American-sounding name Ben Netai, joined the debate team, and played soccer. In that American high school, he wasn't just learning English, he was learning the art of American communication, the confident presentation, the powerful soundbite. It was a skill that would later become his strategic superpower on the world stage. But just as he was about to graduate in 1967, war was brewing back home. Without hesitation, he skipped his graduation ceremony, left his American life behind, and flew back to Israel to enlist in the army. The theoretical lessons of his father were about to become very real. He didn't just enlist, he volunteered for the most elite, most secretive unit in the army, Sayeret Matkal. This was the tip of the spear. For 5 years, he lived a life of counterterrorism, intelligence gathering, and operations deep behind enemy lines. A life where a single miscalculation meant death.
In May 1972, he took part in the rescue of hostages from a hijacked Sabena flight. Disguised as airline technicians, the team, which included another future prime minister, Ehud Barak, stormed the plane. Bibi was shot during the raid. A bullet from another commando's gun ricocheted and hit him in the bicep.
His commander at the time noted the paradox of Netanyahu. He was both a courageous soldier and a relentless debater, someone who would argue about the mission's logic right up until the moment he executed it flawlessly. It was the fusion of his father's intellectualism and the army's pragmatism. After the army, a different life seemed possible. He moved back to the U.S., enrolling at MIT. In a furious burst of energy, he earned 2 degrees in record time, then joined the prestigious Boston Consulting Group, analyzing business strategies for corporations. A life in academia or finance seemed set. Then, on July 4th, 1976, everything changed. He was in Boston when he received the call. His older brother, Yoni, a national hero and commander of Sayeret Matkal, had been killed leading the legendary hostage rescue mission at Entebbe Airport in Uganda. Yoni was the sole Israeli military casualty.
The death of Yoni was the galvanizing tragedy of his life. The abstract ideology inherited from his father now had a face, a name, a deeply personal and lifelong mission. The fight against terrorism was no longer a policy position, it was a sacred duty to honor his fallen brother.
He quit his corporate job. He founded the Yonatan Netanyahu Anti-Terror Institute, organizing conferences and publishing books that brought his brother's cause and Benjamin Netanyahu himself to the world stage. He was no longer a private citizen. He was the keeper of his brother's flame. This mission was his entry into public life. As deputy chief of mission in Washington and later as Israel's ambassador to the UN, he became a fixture on American television. Fluent in English, handsome, and always ready with the perfect soundbite, he powerfully shaped the narrative for Israel in the court of American public opinion. Returning to Israel, he jumped into the cutthroat world of Likud party politics. He was seen by some as an outsider, an American, but he used his media savvy to outmaneuver the old guard and win a seat in the Knesset. His target was already clear: the peace process.
When Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin signed the Oslo Accords with PLO chairman Arafat, Netanyahu saw it as a naive fantasy, a suicidal delusion that endangered Israel's very existence. He became the face of the opposition.
He led rallies where the rhetoric was hot and divisive. Protesters held signs depicting Rabin in a Nazi uniform. While Netanyahu never endorsed such imagery, critics argue his fiery speeches created the political atmosphere that led to Rabin's assassination by a right-wing extremist in 1995. In the election that followed the national trauma of the assassination, Netanyahu narrowly defeated Sharon Peres. In 1996, at the age of 46, he became Israel's youngest ever prime minister. His core mission was clear: to put the brakes on the Oslo process. His first term was rocky, and he lost the 1999 election. For a few years, he was in the political wilderness, but he returned not as prime minister, but as finance minister, where he unleashed radical free market reforms.
These reforms, dubbed Bibinomics, are credited with creating the startup nation, a global tech powerhouse. But they also slashed the social safety net, leading to massive inequality, and in 2011, the largest social justice protests in the country's history.
In 2009, he returned to the prime minister's office, where he would remain for over a decade. It was during this long tenure that the Netanyahu Doctrine came into full effect. The strategy was simple: prevent a Palestinian state at all costs. While managing the Palestinian conflict was one pillar, the other was confronting Iran. He saw Iran's nuclear program as a truly existential threat, a modern-day Nazi Germany bent on a new Holocaust. He famously drew a red line on a cartoon bomb at the UN, a masterful piece of political theater. To prevent a Palestinian state, he pursued a deliberate policy of divide and rule. He bolstered the settlements in the West Bank, making a contiguous Palestinian state physically impossible, while politically sidelining the Palestinian Authority.
At the same time, he made a dangerous calculation. He allowed hundreds of millions of dollars in cash from Qatar to flow into Hamas-run Gaza. His own security chiefs often warned against it, but the logic was cynical and clear. A strong Hamas would ensure the Palestinians remained divided. As Netanyahu himself reportedly told his Likud party members in March of 2019.
This was the core of the doctrine: manage the conflict, don't solve it. The idea was to let Hamas grow just strong enough to control Gaza, and then every few years engage in a limited military operation to degrade its capabilities. A brutal, cynical strategy known as mowing the lawn. The doctrine seemed to be working. The Abraham Accords, normalizing relations with the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco, were a historic achievement. He had bypassed the Palestinians entirely, proving peace could be achieved through strength. He called it peace for peace. The nation felt secure. The army believed Hamas was deterred, more interested in governing than in fighting a major war. The entire security concept of the nation was built on this assumption: the assumption that Hamas could be managed. And then,
The attack was a total catastrophic failure of the doctrine. The multi-billion-dollar high-tech fence was breached. The vaunted intelligence services were blind. The illusion of security that had defined the Netanyahu years was shattered in a matter of hours.
in the aftermath, Netanyahu became a wartime leader. But he was already a leader under immense pressure, on trial for multiple counts of corruption, and facing a massive protest movement against his government's plan to overhaul the judiciary. Now he is dogged by accusations, from inside Israel and out, that his decisions are driven by one thing: his own political survival. That by prolonging the war, he can delay a commission of inquiry into the failures of October 7th, and hold off new elections he is predicted to lose.
So we come back to the beginning, the two portraits. For his supporters, he will forever be the protector, the leader who saw the existential threat of Iran and acted, the visionary who created the startup nation, the statesman who forged the Abraham Accords.
For his critics, he is the great divider, the leader who deepened the occupation and made peace impossible, the politician who fractured his own society and attacked its democratic soul, the architect of a security doctrine that lulled a nation into a false sense of security before collapsing into the greatest disaster in its history. The question now is what comes next.